Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this Monday edition of Fox 10 Talks. I'm Marc Martinez.
And I'm Ellen McNamara. I hope that you guys had a great weekend. And it was kind of a nice weekend here. The weather was awesome.
It was beautiful. One of those perfect weekends where you want to be outside as much as possible.
Yeah.
Again, it went by too fast.
I know. It always does.
Here we are again. But it was really nice. And then the forecast for us in the next 10 days is looking really nice. We're going to be, looks like we're going to start getting back down into normal temperatures, like in the 70s by next week. So that'll be nice.
Oh, man.
Looking forward to that.
It's so nice to get outside and walk your dog, you know, when you don't have to worry about the heat anymore.
Yes, finally. Because my dog does not wear those little, the
booties.
The booties does not work well. So we kind of cut back on the walks when it's too hot outside.
Yeah.
So finally, we're going to be able to get those walks in, get some exercise.
Yeah. It's the booties. If you guys do the booties with your dog, please let us know. Because I don't know how those things work, and I don't know how you get those things on your dog. And
the videos are great because they look like baby deer, whatever they're stomping around.
They're awesome.
The other big thing that we've been keeping an eye on, of course, is the government shutdown, which looks like we may be coming to an end as far as that goes. But the airports are still really feeling the impacts of this shutdown. Air traffic controllers, TSA workers, again, they are short-staffed right now. Some of them are not going to work because they're not getting paid.
Yeah. And of course, as we know, like basically, so late last week, it was Thursday, we heard that the FAA, they were going to be limiting flights. They were going to be canceling flights just because of the government shutdown. And so we had thousands of flights that were canceled. The airlines were canceling flights, being proactive about it just because of the government shutdown. The good news is that there was some agreement. The Senate late last night said that they were going to be moving forward to end the government shutdown. However, we say however with a big star, to get this back kind of in motion could be about a week or so.
Right.
And that's not helping flights now.
No, and the House has to come back into session to make that happen. Just before we came on, I checked at Sky Harbor between yesterday and tomorrow. They're saying 330 delayed flights and 74 of them are canceled. So again, if you are planning on traveling, hopefully you don't have to right now, but if you are, you're really going to want to check in advance multiple times before you get to the airport.
Yeah.
And there's the trickle-down effect is really having an impact on all kinds of airports across the country.
Oh, yeah. And, even like rental cars. So a lot of people, instead of flying now, maybe they're saying, hey, oh, gosh, or if your flight's canceled, maybe I'll just rent a car. Well, then the problem is then there aren't any rental cars, or the price of a rental car has gone through the roof,
Absolutely.
Supply and demand. So it is really having a trickle-down effect, really wherever you're going right now.
Yeah,
really kind of a mess.
Let's check in with Fox's Chelsea Torres live at one of the airports that is impacted by the shutdown, as we were talking about. You are in Charlotte. What's the situation like there, Chelsea?
I am, yeah. Actually, here, and I have to say, even over the past few days that I've been here, it really is almost business as usual. And I've been kind of watching FlightAware.com. We're now at well over 7,000 delays across the country and even over 2,000 cancellations across the country, which is just wild to think about. But some of those top airports that are really seeing this are there, like in Phoenix, even Chicago and New York. And so you would think, especially here with Charlotte, it being a hub for American Airlines, a lot of these airlines have been saying that they're going to really try hard to not mess with the hub-to-hub type of flights. And so a lot of the ones that you will see, if you look up on the board, that are canceled or delayed, they're going to be a lot of those that are going to smaller airports or just small.
What's going to happen is you're going to have air travel slow to a trickle.
So when we look back and see kind of where this flight reduction is coming from, it started at 4% on Friday. Tomorrow, actually, it's supposed to move up to 6%, and then we're supposed to hit that 10% reduction in flights by Friday. Again, this is all because of a lot of these air traffic controllers. They're short-staffed. They were even short-staffed before the government shutdown, but the government shutdown has made it increasingly worse. As you heard the president from the National Association of Air Traffic Controllers, he says that people have not gotten paid for 41 days. And if you think about having to put food on your table, get your child in daycare, I mean, not being paid for 41 days is going to take a mental and physical financial toll on you and your entire family. So really right now, the big question is, when is the government going to open? But even if it does open here in the next couple days, we've already been told that it's going to take a while before things actually get back to normal.
Yeah, and Chelsea, President Trump truthed out earlier about the air traffic controllers. I don't know if you were able to see that. Basically saying, come to work. It's your patriotic duty, even if you're not getting paid. And almost saying that if you do call out, you won't have a job going forward. So the pressure was definitely mounting on some of these air traffic controllers. But you mentioned it. If you're not getting paid, those bills are still coming in. You've got to do something.
You have to do something. And, even Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy mentioned that he understands that people have to find another means to actually put food on the table. But he's really urging, he actually replied back to that post. And he said, listen, I agree with President Trump on this. We need to get our air traffic controllers back to work. But again, if they're not getting paid, this is why he's been urging for the government to reopen. And one thing that I think was very interesting also, kind of going off of both of those comments, is that Secretary Duffy did say that President Trump was able to get funding for the military and for SNAP benefits, and he's hoping at some point funding can come for these air traffic controllers if this government shutdown continues.
Yeah, and I think, too, there was some of the senators that were trying to strike this deal last night, Chelsea. They were trying to push for back pay for some of these federal employees. Has there been any discussion about that? And I don't know. I mean, I know this is so, everything is developing right now. When you were talking with the union rep, was there any discussion that maybe some of these federal employees would get some of that back pay eventually to help some of these people out?
So they would definitely get compensated, right, for the 41 days and plus more that they haven't been working or haven't been getting a paycheck. But what the big question is when will that come? He said he didn't know, and that's the president of the Air Traffic Controllers Association. He said he's not exactly sure. He can only reference back to the 2019 government shutdown, which was 34 days, mind you. And after he said that, it took 2.5 months for all of his air traffic controllers to actually get fully compensated for those 34 days that they were not getting paid. So you factor in an extra week, right? Now we're at 41 days.
Yeah.
So it could take 2.5 months. It could be a little bit longer. It really, I think no one really has an exact answer of how long it could take. I think it's just a matter of getting the government open so that way people can get paid as quickly as possible.
Yeah, and I know we've heard from people directly who have taken out loans, like, really high interest loans just to pay the bills too. And so even if they do get that back pay, that won't necessarily cover those high interest loans either,
right,
which is really unfortunate.
Yeah, it's a bad situation, that's for sure. Chelsea, the travelers there at the airport, if you've had a chance to talk to them, are they getting there really early, or what, with all of the uncertainty going on, did they change the way that they normally travel as far as getting to the airport?
Every single person I've talked to said because they know of what's going on, whether their flight has been affected or not, they've been getting to the airport much earlier than they typically would. So, for instance, one woman I talked to just the other day, she said typically she gets to the airport about 45 minutes to an hour early. She got there 3 hours early. A gentleman that I was talking to, he's flying internationally, which we know that international flights are not being impacted. But even him, he was like, I was going to get here a couple hours early, and he got here nearly 5 hours early.
Whoa.
So, yeah, a lot of people really are just kind of taking their extra precautions and trying to get to the airport as early as possible because no one really knows. You don't really know what you're going to run into until you actually get there. Fortunately here, TSA lines, security lines, they've been pretty smooth. And people have been going in and out just like you typically would. And I think one thing is that a lot of the airlines are even letting their customers know, their passengers know well ahead of time if their flight's going to get canceled. It's just a matter of, are you getting rebooked? Are you actually able to get that refund? Which a lot of airlines have said that you can get your flight completely refunded, even if you're not impacted with no penalty.
Wow.
So there's at least a lot of communication going on right now with a lot of the airlines, but I think people are just taking those extra precautions ahead of what's happening.
Yeah, because you don't know what the TSA line is going to be like. Even if you have a pre-check, everything's kind of up in the air right now, no pun intended.
Right.
So I guess that's why people are making sure they do everything they can to get there on time and see what's going on with the flights.
Yeah, and I know like Southwest, for example, I was actually supposed to fly this past weekend and we decided not to, but Southwest said that if you did decide not to fly, you could get a refund. There was no penalty. So as long as you were proactive about it, there was no penalty. So I felt like that was, good customer service anyway.
I mean, you kind of have to have that, right? I mean, and I think a lot of the airlines, they're doing this, it's really against their will. They're being told by the FAA to cut down on flights. So now they have to go look at all of their schedules and figure things out, cut down a lot. Even Secretary Duffy said that these airlines are going to be losing out on millions of dollars just from these cuts. And then if we go back to saying, okay, well, the government does reopen, then we can just put all those flights back. Well, no, the airlines have to go back, put those flights back up for booking. That's going to take time. Go back into those schedules. And even the air traffic controllers, they're not going to come back right away. It's going to take time. So it really is just a day-by-day situation at this point.
All right. Chelsea Torres, thank you for joining us from Charlotte for that live update from the airport there.
Yeah, a lot of great information.
Yes.
Yeah, Chelsea, thank you. And hopefully it does kind of get a little bit better over the next couple of days. Again, we know that it could take at least a week or so, though, to get better.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Chelsea, thanks so much. And hopefully at least before Thanksgiving.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I think, too, this really affected a lot of people. The SNAP benefits, we were all talking about that beforehand. That obviously impacted a lot of people. But there were many people out there who were not impacted by that. And the government shutdown was just, they knew it was going on, but it wasn't really impacting their lives. And then when this started happening at the airports and people were feeling that effect, I think that may be what kind of pushed this towards a deal with these 8 Democratic senators and the independent senators who voted with Republicans to get government back up and running.
Right, yeah. Well, yeah, because, I mean, if you're taking SNAP benefits, you're probably not... You don't have money to fly, right?
Yes.
I mean, that's kind of what's going on. So, I mean, this certainly was kind of a broad group of people who were impacted by the government shutdown. And then if you're a federal employee and you're not getting paid.
Yes.
And then we were hearing, what I think, too, was interesting about this shutdown was that we actually started hearing from federal employees who were willing to share their story.
Yes.
And because they were willing to share their story, that was really impactful.
It really was.
And you felt horrible for
hearing
them.
from the air traffic controllers talking about not being able to feed their families, taking jobs with DoorDash.
Yeah.
So, it was really interesting. In fact, we're going to talk more about the government shutdown. We've got a live report coming up after this. A quick break. Stay with us.
Welcome back, guys, to Fox 10 Talks on this Monday. Again, I'm Ellen McNamara Marc Martinez.
Yes, Marc Martinez here with you, Ellen.
And, of course, we are talking about what could be the end of the longest government shutdown in American history, likely coming to an end. The Senate, 8 Democrats basically crossed the aisle last night.
And a couple independents.
To end it.
Yeah. Some people are criticizing the Democrats who did this, saying that they should have held out and saying that the subsidies that this fight really was all about, the Obamacare, that there's no guarantee that those subsidies will continue. The Senate leader has said that they will hold a vote on it next month, but it's not guaranteed. And even if a vote happens, there's no result that is guaranteed that those subsidies will continue. So some are saying that they kind of gave away everything too soon. But, who knows? For the people who are not getting paid, you don't want this to keep going on.
They want money, right? Yeah, we've heard cave or compromise. Those are kind of the two words right now that we're hearing. To set this up, we are going to go to Tom Fitzgerald with our affiliate in DC. But before we do that, we want to just kind of play a few sound bites to kind of set up the shutdown first.
After 40 long days, I'm hopeful that we can finally bring the shutdown to an end.
I need a moratorium on the punishing of the federal workforce. That's what I need.
With the government reopening shortly, Senate Republicans now finally have to come to the table. Or, make no mistake, Americans will remember who stood in the way.
I expect Republicans to be at the table in the next few weeks. I expect the White House to be at the table. And if they do choose not to come to the table, they can own the disastrous premium increases that will continue to rise.
I mean this sincerely. We applaud the 7 Senate Democrats and 1 independent senator who did the right thing. They decided to put principle over their personal politics.
So there you go, kind of setting the table here. Let's check in now, as we promised, with Tom Fitzgerald with our station in D.C., WTTG. Tom, thanks for joining us. What is the reaction there in D.C. to all of this late-night development that could end the shutdown?
Well, the reaction kind of depends right now on, which side of the aisle, you talk to. Republicans are pleased with this result. They've been calling for 41 days now for this government shutdown to come to an end. And it appears like we are on a path to that happening. However, up here on Capitol Hill, you learn really quickly not to say things definitively, like it is over until it is over. On the Democratic side, though, it's pretty clear there is a major rift underway. Look, it's not only these 8 members that defected over towards the Republican side to support this bill, which came in at a final vote of 60-40 to break that filibuster and advance this bill. There were rumblings for some time in the Democratic caucus about whether they should, fight or flight. That election result last Tuesday emboldened one wing of the Democratic Party, and for another wing of the Democratic Party, they said, we made our point and that it's time to wrap this thing up. Now, whether or not they got anything out of this for this 41 days of fighting on the Democratic side, that's an open question, because a lot of Democrats right now, including Virginia's Senator Tim Kaine, are on blast right now amongst their own party members and over in the House of Representatives for having agreed to go along with support the Republican bill. But it's not exactly clear what they got in return. Senator Kaine pointed to a lot of achievements, but a lot of those achievements were on the table back in September when this thing was winding towards the shutdown to begin with.
Yeah, and that's the other thing, too, and a lot of people who are being critical of these senators are saying, listen, the senators who crossed the aisle, these senators are safe, and some of the senators are retiring. So it's like no coincidence that these are the ones who crossed the aisle. It's not like the ones who, are up for re-election in 2026, for example. And so I think that's also why they're also getting criticized pretty heavily, too.
Well, Senator Kaine was, reelected last year, so he is one of those senators that doesn't have to worry about, reelection right now. But, when I talked to him today, I said to him, what was the point of all of this? Because this has gone on for 41 days. You've agreed to something that you could have agreed to back in September. His point was that he said he received assurances, both from the White House and from Republicans, that the expiring American health care tax credits that are expiring soon are going to be the subject of a vote in December. Now, what that promise was, still isn't even exactly clear right now. Kaine did say that he's gotten assurances from the White House that full back pay for federal employees will be paid, that SNAP benefits will be paid out for at least a year, and that, you know, a lot of the other things that, you know, fell apart during the shutdown would be restored. But a lot of times, you know, when we've had shutdowns in the past, especially the one that stretched from the end of 2018 into 2019, you know, when there finally is a deal that comes together at the end to end the thing, you can usually point to what the other side conceded on and, you know, what they achieved from it. It's a little harder to do that in this one because it seems like they're kind of ending this where it began.
And Tom, was there, that you know of, any kind of breaking point that happened that made these senators agree to go along with the Republicans on this? Because, as you mentioned, the elections last week, it felt like the Democrats had a lot of wind in their sails, and they seemed kind of emboldened by the election wins. And some people were saying, hey, they're going to keep going until they get the extension on those ACA subsidies in writing. But that's not what happened. But was there one thing that kind of made this all come together so late last night?
Well, I tell you, one of the worst kept secrets up here have been that Democrats have been looking for an off-ramp on this for weeks. Yes, according to the polls, they were winning on this. Yes, the public support, you know, appeared to be behind them. And yes, you know, they did rack up big gains, especially in those gubernatorial races in New Jersey and Virginia, and of course the New York City mayor's race to a lesser extent. You know, but the question, you know, for why, I asked Senator Kaine, you know, you voted against this time and time and time and time again over the last, you know, some odd 6 weeks. He has said that the last week of traveling around the Commonwealth of Virginia in support of the now governor-elect Democrat Abigail Spanberger brought him, you know, face-to-face with a lot of Virginians. Keep in mind, a state like Virginia has a massive amount of federal employees who have not gotten a paycheck since the end of September. A senator says that he's been able to talk to a lot of those folks face-to-face. He's been out to those food banks. And, of course, you know, the spiraling situation we've all been talking about with the airports right now, he didn't think was going to put the electorate in any better of a mood about what's been going on up until now.
Interesting.
Well, Senator Sanders last night, he is clearly not positive that these assurances will come through. And he said that 15 million Americans will be thrown off Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. And he said, according to studies, that 50,000 fellow Americans will die unnecessarily because that will happen. So he doesn't feel like these assurances will happen at all. And that, I mean, regardless, this is basically just kicking the can to January 30th, right? So, I mean, the continuing resolution is just going to happen until January 30th. So, is that right?
Well, I'll tell you something about continuing resolutions. Continuing resolutions always kick things down the road and kick the can. Because all continuing resolutions have an expiration date. This one will too. In fact, the reason this has to go back to the House now for another vote is because the original expiration date that they had on the continuing resolution that they've been fighting about for the last 6 weeks was November 21st. Now, you know, here we are on November 11th. What would be the point of approving a continuing resolution that would only go, you know, for the next 10 days? So that was one of the things that had to be reworked in this new Senate version. That has to go back over to the House. Then it would go down to the White House and then ostensibly for a signature with the president. But, you know, as far as this question of the guarantee, this was put to the House Speaker, Mike Johnson. He's been having these press conferences up here almost every morning of this shutdown at 10 a.m. There's really no guarantee that if somehow an ACA tax extension were to get through to the Senate and it wound up in the House, that Speaker Johnson would even schedule a vote for it right now. Some Republican members are saying, no, we're not going to go along with that. So there are no absolutes with this at all.
Yeah. In Arizona, just this is kind of actually related to Mike Johnson. We have been following Adelita Grijalva and the fact that she has not been sworn in yet. Do you think she will be sworn in now that the House is going to have to be called back to session?
You know, I've been doing this long enough to learn not to predict things like that. And here's why. Earlier in the year, back in September, there was a Virginia congressman by the name of Jerry Connolly who passed away after a cancer battle. His replacement was elected in a special election, and there was an open question here as to whether or not the new Congressman-elect, James Walkinshaw, a Democrat, was going to be sworn in. The Speaker's office was very non-committal about that. In fact, it was a surprise where, just one day after Walkinshaw's election, he actually was sworn into office. But remember, that is when the House is in session, and every single time Speaker Johnson has been asked about this new, member of Congress who has not been sworn in yet, he's repeatedly said that he would not do it until the House resumes regular order. Now, one of the things he did say this morning, that he is bringing the House back, or expecting, any time within a time frame of about 36 hours, that they're going to have to vote on this Senate bill. That would be the moment, you would imagine, that a new member of Congress would be sworn in. Whether or not he does it, that is only something Mike Johnson knows right now.
Tom Fitzgerald reporting for us. Thank you so much, Tom. We really appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Really kind of wrapping this all up for us. A lot of questions about what was going on in D.C. last night. So
yes, and it looks a little chillier there. So, Tom, we appreciate it than Arizona.
Well, welcome to November.
All right, Tom, thank you so much. We
Thank
appreciate that.
you.
Great to hear from somebody who's been covering this for so long and really knows the ins and outs of what's going on in D.C. as we're covering it from afar. But very interesting stuff, and it will be critical to see what happens to Adelita Grijalva. But I do believe he said he will swear her in. So
he has said it, but as Tom said, don't.
I know, it's true.
don't swear by anything,
yes,
right?
He knows how that goes there in D.C. And talking about the deal that was struck last night, he made a really good point that there really is no guarantee of anything in D.C.
No,
I mean,
there's not.
A handshake or giving somebody your word. Maybe they're going to rely on that, but I don't know. I think the things we've seen in the past, just so much bipartisanship.
Yeah.
That I don't know if you're going to be able to come together on something like that.
Right. I know. And the other thing, too, is, you heard a couple of the Democrats saying that, we want people to go on record with a vote. And it's like, I don't know that doesn't even really matter, I mean,
she was saying that the, Republicans will own this if the ACA subsidies go away and people's health insurance costs skyrocket. But I don't know if people are paying that much attention and who's voting
the
which
average
way,
American, I just don't think they pay attention to that kind of thing.
But long story short, I guess we've still got some ways to go before things get back to operating as normal.
Yeah. Thanks, guys, so much for joining.